Coming out of MMA's first boom period in the early 2000s, the sport was rapidly growing, and it needed people that could connect to a larger audience worldwide. Jason Miller was given a torch to carry for the community. He was an elite fighter, but also had one of the most entertaining and watchable personalities in the sport.
The people paid their money to sit in that seat. I want them from the time that I walk out to the time I leave the damn arena to be entertained.
Man, you know, a lot of these guys say they fight for the love. I don't fight for the love. I fight because I never learned to read.
But the love of the fans did nothing to stop him from turning his life and career into complete mayhem. And let me tell you, friends, watching the self-destructive spiral and downfall of a cult hero is like stabbing the heart of the community itself. The higher the climb, the harder the fall, and no one in MMA history has perhaps fallen harder.
It was a nightmare. I went from the fight world to crime because I had no other way to really make it. I didn't have any structure in my life. So fun to like get in some trouble. When everybody would recognize, yo, it's mayhem.
Yeah,
it's
get ready for mayhem.
Yeah. By the part of the drinks come out, we go insane.
I'm Balian from MMA On Point, and this is Mayhem Miller, the self-destruction of an MMA cult hero. Chapter 1, Raised for War. To say Jason Miller was born into an ordinary situation would be a gross understatement. The baby, soon to be known as Mayhem, was born on Christmas Eve in an army hospital in a place called Fayetteville, North Carolina. Very much an army town with museums on US Army history and even airborne special operations. Encased inside military walls is basically where Jason Miller spent his childhood. Military bases became his playground, all under the watchful eye of his father, a veteran who definitely did not take things easy on Miller growing up.
Like, my family is from the mountains of Tennessee.
My dad was in the army, and it was like, I always have like a kind of a army military mentality about things.
My father went through that to PTSD, the whole thing.
His dad had served in the 82nd Airborne Division and had also been an amateur boxer, and his favorite catchphrase was apparently "suck it up and drive on."
You know, he went to Iraq part 1 and saw what they were doing, and it kind of messed him up. He was a tank killer. Like, you drive this big gun behind a Humvee, and you look at a map and shoot it over the hill and obliterate everything, and then drive through what you just did.
His mother, on the other hand, had also been in the army and then worked as a nurse. She'd even met his father while both stationed in Germany with the US Armed Forces. So both were blue-collar workers pulling overnight shifts, striving to make it out of their government housing, and demonstrated one thing to Jason: hard work. Being surrounded by weapons and war, though, and probably not much else to do, wasn't necessarily the thing that started to cause Mayhem to act out. He also moved a lot, all across the US to different bases and government housing, with his family spending several years at Fort Bragg in North Carolina that would become what he'd call home. From an early age, though, his dad was determined to raise him to follow in his footsteps, to join the army like many Millers before him.
I mean, when I was like 5, my dad was like giving me a stick, teaching me how to dig a foxhole. That was like such a big part of my life that I didn't even think about college because I'm going to the army.
But in raising his son this way, with discipline and within the rigid rules of a military base, it seemed to only cause Jason to act out more. Maybe he was indeed destined to cause mayhem. He started getting into trouble.
I set up a caper when I was 15 to like steal some plywood to build a skateboard ramp, and got caught, and my dad busted my ass into Miller boot camp. I woke up at 5:30 and did PT, ran like 12 miles with him. And this guy's like 40 years old, something like just running me into the dirt, like making me screaming in my face, you know, the full-on army experience.
But Mayhem wasn't just getting into trouble and fighting other kids, he even had to fight his dad. They'd often spar, and as Jason tells it, one wrestling session in the kitchen ended up with him going unconscious, falling into a fridge. It wasn't surprising then he developed an interest in fighting. It was something he'd been encouraged to do since he could walk. After they moved though, his new school had a wrestling team, and once he started getting good at that, he also took up judo and karate. But the problem was, well, Jason didn't really play nicely with others. He was there to fight, to learn to fight other people. He treated every session like a battle, and apparently often broke noses or beat people up. Apparently, he didn't really understand that some people were there to train and learn the martial art. It was also during this time he was exposed to a set of videotapes that were going around. He was scrapping with his friend Pierre, and he got put to sleep in a triangle choke and wanted to know what the hell had happened. Miller was just 16 years old, and the UFC had just gotten started 3 years before. But once Miller saw those tapes and saw that fighting was a sport, he started to become obsessed.
One of my biggest regrets is that I chose a life of glory to go and fight professionally instead of go join the army. The internet changed me off of it because not only did it give me a community of, we called it no holds barred back then. Not only did it give me that community to hype me up to be like, oh, I can do this. I'm already good at fighting. It also showed my dad, who is a long, 20-year Army vet, that war is kind of a racket. We're doing the work of the rich corporations. He told me, you're a damn dumbass, go to computer school. And I was like, no, I'm gonna fight.
After beating up everyone at the judo school, the coach told him, please go down the road because there's an ultimate fighting school and you can actually fight people there instead. He started going every day. Up until that point, summers had been spent skateboarding. Now he was training mixed martial arts. He was still a boy, training among men and getting himself beaten up. But Jason didn't want to wait around. When he turned 17, he booked his first fight against a fully grown man, and he even skipped his senior prom so he could compete. Using his wrestling, Jason got his first win, but even back then, he was internalizing that he'd just had a boring fight, something he never ever wanted to do again. He was going to take risks, and he was going to entertain. Supposedly, according to Mayhem, this whole time his dad had kind of driven home the idea that you aren't a man until you can beat me up. His dad's idea of returning the favor after apparently finally losing to Jason was to disappear. He told him one day that he was driving to Tennessee from where they lived in North Carolina and asked if he wanted to lift to go see his girlfriend in South Carolina. Of course, Jason said yes, but only after he dropped off did he realize that South Carolina wasn't on the way to Tennessee, and Miller wouldn't hear from his dad for the next 5 years. Although it's not really clear what his relationship was like with his mum at this point, Jason decided to get himself a van and continue to travel around and train and compete, eventually booking himself in a title fight against Todd Carney at the Icon Sports event in Atlanta. Mayhem was still raw, but it was clear he was talented. At just 20 years old, he'd won his first title with a rear naked choke. With still one dream in mind, there was only one place Jason knew he needed to get to, where the Gracies had opened their gyms and where several UFC fighters were setting up real gyms and training camps: California.
I'm on my way to California. Here I come.
The wonders of
Chapter 2: The Path of the Warrior.
I lived in this fucking van.
The van had ants.
I drove that van from Atlanta. Like, I zigzagged the whole country.
He drove straight to the Huntington Beach Ultimate Training Center, parked his van in the car park, and basically never left, having to now only walk 40 feet to get the level of training he was finally looking for.
You wanted to be there for practice all the time, and if you had to live in the van, fine. Yeah, I didn't want to live in the van. Like, you were into fighting. You're so into it that it's like driving motivation was to beat your own limits, to go to the next level, to learn some new shit all the time, to figure out how to be like this legendary guy,
Jason was developing as a fighter, but he quickly found out there was a lot more to learn when, in just his third pro fight, he took on the greatest of all time.
Which is just that my first professional fight ever was against Mayhem.
Dude, I had a primary game plan,
Yeah.
secondary game plan, and I had a tertiary game plan. And then I had the fucking go for it, do some crazy shit game plan. If none of that worked, I didn't have enough skills. Early on in my fight game, I had figured out jiu-jitsu a bit. I knew how to get on people's back and choke them.
I hit him with a double A.
He just kept taking me down, and I didn't submit him in time, I got close at the end of the fight, but I never,
Team Quest Champ Sunday.
It was Jason's first professional loss, but he didn't let that deter him. Knowing he still had a lot to improve on, Jason started traveling around to even more gyms in California, and a place he really started to improve was training out with Tito Ortiz and Rampage Jackson at Team Punishment.
Yeah, Team Punishment, and it was badass.
I didn't have a car. He picked me up for training and he drove me to the gym. Hey, you remember we used to have those Halo parties?
Halo parties?
Oh my God.
Bro,
yeah.
we were down early, bro. We were gamers for real. Everyone brought their TV, brought our Xbox, and we would just have a straight LAN party, straight up nerds, bro.
Later on, Tito Ortiz taught me how to wrestle better. Went back to take guys down, and then I was like, nah, don't choke them out. Round and pound them.
He then got a call from the same promoter back in Atlanta that wanted him to return to rematch Todd Carney, who he'd beaten for the Icon Sport title. Mayhem agreed, but this time his wrestling kind of backfired. It was another loss for Jason, and a quick one, but a few months later the promoters offered him the rematch and he jumped right back in to avenge it. Immediately it was clear Jason had leveled up again.
How Oyama taught me how to kickbox better, then I could probably win the fight, you know? They stayed basic for many years. After you kick the guy a few times, got your range down, the guy has weak wrestling, let's take him down.
The ground and pound work with Tito Ortiz at Team Punishment had really started to pay off, but Jason continued to be a real nomad of the MMA world, heading out to Vegas to train with US Jiu-Jitsu great Mark Lehman and sharpening his skills alongside Phil Baroni. This was just the first fight of 2003 though for Jason. He'd go on to compete 6 more times, including fighting in a one-night tournament just 2 weeks later, and he got a Canadian legend in the first round.
At that time, there was 2 Jason Millers with different records. If you watch the fight, it's a very fast-paced fight. I need him and hit him with an elbow in the freaking neck. It was awesome. And he just stood there and looked at me. He had a good chin. I think I tried to shoot in on him and he sprawled. And from guard, I got an omoplata that he defended, spun into a knee bar. He took my back and he choked me out.
And in the next round of the tournament, Jason had to face another future UFC contender, Tim Kennedy. Against the wrestling of Tim Kennedy, Jason would be handed another loss. But it was the last he'd suffer for a while. Soon after, Mayhem would be invited to compete in Hawaii at Super Brawl, a growing promotion, and after picking up some wins, he was matched up with a big star, Egan Inoue, brother to Ensign and the first non-Brazilian to win a gold medal at the World Jiu-Jitsu Championships as a purple and a brown belt. They were both Hawaiian heroes. In front of a packed Hawaiian crowd, they went to war.
Split, fight trunks. Jason Miller goes for a high kick. Got his guillotine. By Jason Miller rolling over, goes for his leg.
And as Miller had always promised, it was certainly entertaining.
Jason doesn't want to keep on rolling. What's it? Go rolling, so there's been a roll. He's locking it. Jason just eating it. Egan's doing a good job at controlling the position. He's getting in. Over tries to hit the top, and Egan, he takes the top. Defending his back. That's pounding Egan. 30 seconds left here. Egan's just kind of defending.
It was truly an incredible fight and performance from both men, and the crowd were blown away. It looked like the fight might be coming to an end, and then Mayhem pulled out the unexpected once again.
Over. He's going for a single right here. See if he can pull it in. Nice. Miller jumps. Egan defends from the back position here. Miller just keeps on pounding here.
It was another TKO win for Miller, who just beaten the #1 contender and the hometown hero. It made Jason a bit of a superstar in Hawaii. All that was left now was to fight for the belt, and the following year, Jason took on Ronald Yoon for the Super Brawl Welterweight Championship. The guy was one of the toughest 170ers at the time. After Mayhem got the win though, teammates of Ronald and other fighters jumped in the ring. Miller got sucker punched and a riot broke out in the stadium. Now sadly there doesn't seem to be any footage of this anywhere, but it sounds chaotic. He was now the Super Brawl welterweight champion and had done enough to get on the radar of the UFC. They had just started to rebrand their own image, and UFC 52 was going to be their biggest show ever. The Ultimate Fighter Season 1 had just wrapped, and headlining the card were the 2 coaches, Chuck Liddell versus Randy Couture. And Jason was being brought in to take on their newest star, Georges St. Pierre.
That was the first UFC on TV from when they canceled it.
I got everything that you need to be a certified ass whipper.
And Jason walked out in a mask, getting to show fans a bit of his personality. Jason was here though, in the UFC at just 24 years old, already with a record of 22-4.
That was like one of the first times in my life that I realized that old adage about it's the way you play the game is true.
Miller essentially got outclassed by GSP, who was just so technically effective.
I walked into the gym after that on Monday and the room was packed. I showed up late with a busted nose. The whole room stopped and fucking standing ovation me, stopped training and everything. And I was like, oh shit, I was so depressed. But these guys like recognized what I did was so damn hard and did it with heart that, you know, my heart grew 3 sizes like the Grinch, you know?
He also said he experienced something called Octagon Shock. In front of 20,000 fans and the over 280,000 who had bought the pay-per-view, he said some guys tense up, but for him, it made him fight like he was in a street fight, wild and reckless. But to be honest, George was also just that good. He opened a MySpace account where he would post pictures, blogs about training and the sport, as well as have competitions with his fans. I mean, his number 2 friend was Joe Rogan. He even had his own website, mayhemmiller.com, and was seen seemingly way ahead of other fighters, basically creating his own content. Mayhem did not get a call to come back to the UFC, however. A Full Contact Fighter magazine article from May 2004 lists Miller as being legally plagued, kind of suggesting he was already getting himself into trouble with the law, and with the UFC desperately trying to rehab and clean up MMA's image, with 52 literally breaking them out of the dark ages, it maybe makes sense as to why they wouldn't want to sign a guy who was in and out of jail.
I just got busted. I was like out of jail for like a couple weeks and fought George St. Pierre. Like, that's the way I do things, man.
I mean, it even seems like he was supposed to fight GSP at UFC 48 instead of Jay Heron, and it's probably those same legal troubles that stopped it from happening. Honestly, guys, it's hard to tell. The details are a little hazy. But Miller instead returned to Super Brawl and Icon Sport and racked up another 4 wins in a row, with more and more fans tuning in to watch his walkouts and his antics. During this time, he also started to train out at Team Quest with the likes of Dan Henderson and Randy Couture, and was also getting out and competing in grappling tournaments across the country.
I saw you at a jiu-jitsu tournament.
You know what? I flipped the table because they fucking rocked.
Yes.
I was on top of the guy the whole time doing all the work, and this guy wins by a quarter point. I needed that money too. They give you like $1,000, $2,000 to win the tournament, and I knew I could win that whole tournament.
Soon though, Jason would get another massive opportunity, a chance to fight for the Icon Sport Middleweight Championship against another UFC fighter, Robbie Lawler. Since leaving the UFC, Lawler had gone undefeated and won the Icon title, and this was a massive fight for MMA fans at the time, and it was back in Hawaii where Jason was an icon. Crazy walkouts were becoming a pretty regular thing for Mayhem at this point. Jason seemed calm, but Robbie looked pissed. It's important though not to understate just how much love he got from the Hawaiian fans. Lawler was being super patient in this fight, desperate clearly not to gas out or get taken down. When Robbie did start firing though, things got bad quickly.
Now Lawler going for a kick to the head. Lawler on top of Miller, unleashing some punches. Yeah, Lawler might want to be careful, but he's landing a couple of blows.
Maybe not. Maybe he's got man hurt. Nice knee to the head by Lawler.
Miller in trouble.
Champ Robbie was starting to beat on Mayhem, but if Jason's always had confidence in one thing, it's his own toughness.
I never not think I'm gonna win.
Lets it go for a second. Lawler back up to his feet and spins out of it. Now they're both back standing up. Here's round 3, a little trash talking between these two. Miller comes in with a kick and then a punch. Another kick. A haymaker right from Mayhem Miller. Still a long, long time, an eternity left here in round 3. And Miller letting loose.
Gonna stick his hand around, jump off, and lay to the side. He's got it in.
And he holds it.
Has to squeeze.
And he finished it. There's the tap. There's the tap.
Miller leapt onto the ropes, absorbing the thunderous ovation. He'd won another world title. He was completely overcome with emotion and couldn't hold back the tears before they even put the belt on him. It was kind of a crowning achievement for Mayhem at this point in his career. He'd not won in the UFC, but he'd secured another title outside of it and still against some of the best in his weight class. But sadly, his time at the top wouldn't last. He was called back just a few months later to defend his title against Frank Trigg. This walkout was just insane. He had a whole troop of Chinese dragons with him. This fight, though, turned into a grueling war with the indomitable Frank Trigg just marching forward non-stop, slowly breaking Jason apart.
Left hand lands. Jason may be hurt. Another left hand. Another left hand. Oh, right on his chin. Now the knee. A high knee. He gets Jason's back. Nice soccer kick. It could be over. It could be over. He's off of close. Open. He shoots for a single. This is it. It's over. Ladies and gentlemen, Frank Trigg.
I hate losing. You know, I'm not very happy right now. Lost my fight, lost my belt, and I'm losing my mind.
Now, Jason wasn't in the UFC during this time, but he'd openly stated that he didn't really need to be. He was getting bigger paychecks, ironically fighting outside of it and against big name fighters. And this only drove Miller to promote himself even further, doing something quite forward thinking for way back in 2006. 18 years ago, he started a YouTube vlog series.
Yeah, I did a few things called the Mayhem Show.
Monkeys! Mayhem Miller here. The only show on the internet that's anti-boredom and pro random.
Jason kept releasing episodes of The Mayhem Show, and honestly, dude definitely deserves some credit for being one of the pioneers of this kind of stuff in this era. Fighter, comedian, content creator, the guy was doing it all. He even had his own fans, Mayhem Monkeys.
How do I become a monkey, man?
You already are a monkey. We're sitting on a rock spinning around in space, and we're talking monkeys. Look at my opposable thumbs.
Miller then continued to win, getting great victories over Hector Urbina, who he finished in the first round, before making an appearance in the WEC. It was another great performance and a decision victory, this time in front of a big hardcore fan audience. It proved Jason was still elite, still on the level, and so he got to run it back with Tim Kennedy, and this one was going out to thousands more fans on HDNet Fights. Mayhem was starting to come through on screen. His bigger shows with promo packages really gave him a chance to show off his personality, and he didn't skip a beat.
My name is Jason Mayhem Miller. I'm a pro wrestler from parts unknown.
I mean, even now, I can't keep a straight face.
My game plan is top secret. It's been drawn up by warlords from West Africa, and I've taken it via the internet.
And of course now, on television, he made true to his word. Since his very first fight, he was going to put on a damn show. In round one, Tim was taking Jason down and controlling him with good top position. But once Jason got on top, it was a different story.
Nothing effective so far. There is a cut on Tim Kennedy's face.
The blood was getting kind of ridiculous.
It would look like Rob Zombie has stepped in and started directing this fight.
Jason continued to control Tim from the top, dropping ground and pound and getting his hand raised, taking his L back from Tim. It was a great way for him to end 2007, considering the previous year he'd lost to Frank Trigg. Now he was once again a fighter that everyone wanted on their show, and after conquering the US and Hawaii, there seemed to be only one place left for Jason to go. Somewhere where his theatrics and antics wouldn't be stifled but embraced, the glorious fighting nation of Japan. Chapter 3, International Icon. The next 2 years of Miller's life saw things completely explode. He'd go from appreciated hardcore fighter to the international stage and eventually worldwide fame. News broke in 2008 that the newly erected Dream promotion in Japan would be holding a middleweight Grand Prix tournament. They tried to pull the best of the unsigned international middleweights from around the world, and that included Mayhem. And if you thought you'd seen a Jason Miller show, think again. Mayhem in Japan was on a whole nother level.
I fought my best fights when I was like, dude, I ain't really worried about winning or losing. I'm worried about giving the people the best show. People paid their money to sit in that seat. I want them from the time that I walk out to the time I leave the damn arena to be entertained.
Miller was back, grabbing everyone's attention again, and they all wanted to know what would happen next in Japan.
Yo, June 15th in Dream, I'm fighting again, man. I'm in a tournament.
Sakuraba?
No, I wish, I hope. I've been crossing my fingers like a kid on Christmas waiting for Nintendo.
But as joyous in reflection as this might seem to some of you, there was perhaps something else going on in between the lines.
What do you say to the critics that say that you're a little too much? You don't focus on the fighting, the respecting of the opponents, all that stuff.
I think they're right. I think this is all an act.
This whole persona?
Yeah.
All right, Mayhem.
I just made this all up.
Miller was being himself, but of course, in a lot of ways, Mayhem was an act. He was playing a character, a hyperbolic version of himself. He'd made it very clear he was here to entertain. But whether he was being 100% himself all the time, or Mayhem was something he lent into, there's a very real danger of blurring the lines. Just 1 month later, and it was time for the next round of the Grand Prix, and without a doubt the toughest test in Jason's career since George St. Pierre. Ronaldo Jacare Souza. The guy was on an 8-fight finishing streak coming from the world of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with multiple world championships under his belt. But if you've learned anything about Jason Miller so far, he absolutely was going to back himself 100%. Unfortunately for Jason though, he just couldn't get the performance together against Jacare. It was a back and forth fight, but mostly with Mayhem on the defensive, escaping submissions, with it mainly taking place on Jacare's terms. The decision was read, and Jason was out of the tournament. He was about to get an offer though that would completely change the course of his career. He was pitched an idea to host a reality TV show.
I was fighting in Japan, making a bunch of money. Then they came at me with this idea that I like almost passed up. The way they pitched it was like a serious show. And I was like, buddy, that sounds stupid.
Yes, that's
They're like, no, you get to be funny. And I was like, okay.
The idea was to blend reality and MMA fighting together, but in an MTV-friendly format with Miller as the perfect host, someone who understood the sport but could also be funny.
In the beginning, dude, it was the Wild West. No script. And I can't believe it got made because on day one of like the testing, this guy's like, all right, I kind of want to see what MMA, this skinny dude. And some kid jumps guard on the guy and the guy snaps his leg like a chicken bone.
The show, Bully Beatdown, involved contestants sending in home videos to MTV about a bully in their neighborhood. Then Miller would show up and challenge them to fight a pro fighter.
They had a Craigslist, straight up like casting call to a Craigslist. Do you have a bully? Are you a bully? Do you want to be on a show? Do you think you could fight a professional mixed martial arts fighter? I think the reason that show took off was me chatting with the guy and taking advantage of my quick, like, we could do an interview for about an hour and cut that down into 6 minutes.
And the best part, well, no one could complain because these guys were all being bullies.
The thing is, though, everyone said Bully Beatdown was fake. And I kind of egged that rumor on because I wanted more people to sign up. I wanted us to just keep going. But the reality is, those fights are real. I would tell the fighters, hey man, look, like cook them. Don't just take the guy out and obliterate him. We got to stretch 22 minutes here, bud.
The bully was offered $10,000 to come on the show, and the rules were pretty simple.
For round one, the rules are simple. Grappling only, no strikes allowed. The bully starts the rounds with $5,000, but loses $1,000 to his victims every time he's forced to tap out. And all the money the bully loses goes to his victims, Lorenzo and Joey.
I got kicks that'll drop a tree.
Crank his head off. I don't have the insurance for this kind of thing.
I'm the baddest dude he's gonna come across.
What's up? Go, punch.
I've got into more than 250 fights. We got him, Daniel Cormier, and then also Eddie Alvarez, Jake Shields was on it. We had like Andrei Arlovsky.
And of course, Miller eventually got in there himself.
This is me. I'm a 6'1" Capricorn who likes long walks on the beach and books about Europe.
This is way too much fun to be legal.
The show was a massive success, and the first season aired March 2009. Mayhem went all over the media on podcasts and shows to promote the show.
How fast would it take you to kill either one?
And shortly afterwards, it was announced that Mayhem would be returning to Japan to once again take on Jacare, only this time it would be for the vacant middleweight Dream Championship.
Stare down between the two for the fight we've been looking forward to. The time for talk is over. Miller and Jacare, Dream middleweight title.
But just when things were getting interesting, this fight was suddenly stopped.
Ironically, an extraordinary human being. You know, this guy's famous. He's got a good show, and right now he's on top.
Break. Jacare's been cut.
In a hectic exchange, Miller had thrown a kick to Jacare while he was down, and it was illegal under the Dream rule set. The kick had also cut Jacare, but they thought it was unintentional. Either way, the fight was declared a no contest, and neither man could win the title. A trilogy was immediately discussed, but both fighters left Dream for Strikeforce back in the US, a promotion that had steadily been on the rise. And for Mayhem, this meant more than that. They were giving him an immediate shot at the championship against the 12-fight win streak of Jake Shields. This entrance was just insane. You have to see the dance move he was pulling off, totally in the zone. Miller, though, got immediately taken down. Jason quickly began to fade as Shields took over, and he grinded out a decision victory. Mayhem had 2 chances in a row at vacant world championships, and he'd gone home empty-handed both times.
Only was my best fight, unfortunately. Mayhem was tough and hung in there. I wish I could have put him away, but you know.
But Mayhem did not let that loss go. He went on a campaign for a rematch, calling Jake a boring fighter. When they were both matched up on the Strikeforce Nashville card for their next fights, it seemed to make a lot of sense. But little did the matchmakers know they were about to cause a national television incident. The show was going out live on CBS, a commercial network where an estimated 3 million viewers were tuned in to watch the fights. Shields was defending his title against Dan Henderson in the main event, but before that, Mayhem was taking on Tim Stout, and he absolutely smashed him apart in the first round. Meanwhile, in the main event, Jake Shields secured another unanimous win after a night of them on the CBS main card. And I'm sure Jason knew that and was frustrated that his fight hadn't been watched by millions of people, or maybe that he just couldn't stand a champion that boring from his perspective. Either way, what he did next killed MMA on the CBS network.
If you knock your guy out, Jake wins, we're gonna set up a rematch. I said, great. Jake's giving the interview. I text my manager, should I go in and ask for a rematch? He said, yes.
What's up? Where's my rematch, buddy?
It's a sport. And so when things like this happen, it's not good for the sport. It's so unnecessary. It damages the, the way people look at, some of these athletes. And then one incident like this is like, oh, they're just a bunch of, bar fighters.
CBS dropped MMA and Strikeforce, and it wouldn't be on network television again until the UFC on Fox era, and Jason would travel out to Japan one last time to take on a true icon of the sport, the biggest name to ever do it from Japan, Kazushi Sakuraba. Make no mistake though, he was definitely past his prime at this point. It quickly though became a beatdown.
Postures up now, just Mayhem rolls that right hand to the jawline. You see the head of Sakuraba bang back against the canvas. Large movement with the head of Mayhem. Holds the neck down and thumps into the jawline. Vicious stuff from Mayhem. Can Mayhem stop it?
It was brutal, but Jason did him the honor of sparing him nothing, giving him 100%. It meant a lot to Mayhem. But just how much he didn't truly know yet. His victory over Sakuraba in Japan would remain in fans' minds through the next several years as everything we knew and thought we knew about Jason Miller was about to be stripped away. Chapter 4, The Fall of a Cult Hero. Initially, things started to look up for Mayhem. After failing to win the World Championships in Dream and Strikeforce, the UFC reached out again with an offer. Jason was being asked to come back and coach season 14. And this for me is when my own MMA timeline finally intersected with Jason Miller's. I had just started watching MMA, and really, The Ultimate Fighter was what got me into it as well back in 2011. Michael Bisping was the biggest fighter from the UK, and Jason Miller was the enemy, coaching opposite him. I didn't know who he was. I didn't really know who anyone was at that point, but as I waited for each weekly episode to drop while sat in my university dorm room, I absolutely blasted MMA Core on YouTube, watching all the seasons of Bully Beatdown I could stream, as well as the previous Tough seasons. But my first ever weekly Ultimate Fighter season was Mayhem versus Bisping. It might not sound much to newer fans, but if you know what I mean, let me know in the comments what your first season was when you started watching. It was a perfect setting, again, for Miller to be introduced to newer fans who didn't watch other promotions.
He's trained with all the best, he's fought all the best, he's finished 20 of his 24 fights, and 14 of those were by submission.
Maybe I'm biased, but I love this season, and I thought Miller came across as a very knowledgeable and very down-to-earth and relatable coach. He cracked wise a few times, but I also got the sense he was never trying to steal too much of the spotlight for himself, never went too far, and perhaps wanted the focus to be on the fighters. Of course, maybe they just edited the show that way, who knows.
Yeah, I'm so excited about you guys right now. You don't know how excited I am. So Captain America, just blow your chest out and try to finish, but if that doesn't work, you go from Captain America to Wolverine.
Two of Jason's fighters, John Dodson and Dennis Bermudez, reached the finale. Only one would win, but they both had great careers in the UFC as well. Jason, however, did not. The fight with Bisping was long hyped, and they almost came to blows on the show.
What the f*** are you talking to, you prick? Hey, what the f*** are you talking to? Me, you hey, bro, I just put you. Don't you ever don't want him to touch the real knife.
But the performance Jason turned in against Bisping in his UFC debut really only said two things. Either he wasn't prepared and didn't take things seriously, or he wasn't the fighter he used to be. It was a complete one-sided beatdown from the count as Jason just sat against the cage and took it.
I lost his last fight, and it made me so damn hungry to get back in the gym and kind of correct some of the mistakes that were made in the training camp.
He entered his next fight against CB Dollaway with a heavily taped up knee, and although he landed some good strikes, he just couldn't follow up with anything. He went 2 rounds to 1 for CB, and sadly, it would be the last UFC performance of Mayhem's career, not living up in any way to the fighter we had seen outside of the promotion. Following his loss to Dollaway, it was reported that Miller was involved in a backstage incident where he supposedly was denied a beer by a UFC staff member and had an outburst which was taken the wrong way. Dana said he was done and dropped him. After that, Miller made the statement that he was done with fighting. Between the months that followed, Mayhem's world got completely flipped upside down.
For me, it was the grocery store. Like, this is my life now. I'm standing in front of Cocoa Puffs. No.
Mayhem Miller had been prescribed a new medication by his doctor, one that he would start taking and eventually abusing, seriously starting to affect his behavior.
Oh, you got ADD.
Yeah.
Take this pill. And then suddenly my brain is on fucking fire.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, let's go crazy. Like, all my ideas, now I'm trying to do every idea and nonstop. Everything that I like to do got turned up to 11.
In August, the MMA world was shocked when news came out that Mayhem had been arrested for burglary and trespassing after being found naked inside a church in California. Apparently, having slept there after breaking in at night, he destroyed a bunch of books, CDs, pictures, and was taken into custody and released on a $20,000 bond. But the pastor of the church dismissed it, thinking he needed spiritual guidance instead, which maybe he did, because this was just the beginning.
Hey man, like, we're cool, but we're also human, and you were like, I'm pretty sure I'm not. And I'm like, I'm like, that's scary, dude, because you need to still be human.
I was not here.
Then the following month in October, he went on the MMA Hour to promote Here Comes the Boom, Kevin James' movie, which he really had quite a small part in. But he refused to break character, much to the confusion of his fans watching, and eventually stormed off the set with no one really knowing what to think, except that was a little weird, and maybe this guy needs help.
Oh. That one's not working. There's no light.
Ma'am, come on.
There's
Come
no
on.
light.
Let's keep... Ma'am.
There's my face on the screen. Look, if you want fucking Mayhem, look, you're gonna have to, like, you know...
What? Tell me.
Schedule with him.
What do you mean? I did schedule with him.
He's here all the time.
What's going on, man?
Look, I had about enough of this. Are you fucking done?
Done what?
You gonna fucking talk to me and
Man,
ask me
I
questions
have
about
to be,
Here Comes the Boom?
I have to be honest with
It
you.
comes out
I want to
on
be honest with you.
October 12th?
You know, man.
Yo, bro, I'm fucking sick of it. Yo,
Okay.
you know what? You guys fucking have your fucking stupid internet radio show in your mom's basement.
Ma'am, this is not
Hey, you know
Andy
what?
Kaufman
Fucking
and...
stop calling me man.
Okay.
It all started to lead to concerns about his mental health. And what exactly was going on? Was it CTE? Was he on drugs?
This cycle of addiction, the kind of drinking and going crazy, and you know, if you have all these fun people around you encouraging it, it's super hard.
In August 2013, he was again arrested, this time twice for charges in back-to-back nights involving his girlfriend at the time. He pled not guilty and was eventually acquitted of all the charges after just 1 hour of deliberation by the jury. But it was all a cycle that Miller just couldn't find a way out of.
I always had a safety net. Some chick, I'll get in a domestic with her, and then she'll like be waiting at the jail to pick me up. You know, like, I love you so much. And just a constant back and forth, toxic relationship. I would commiserate with the lady, and that lady would have those pills, and that lady would give me those pills. Oh, here, take one of these. I would be getting fucked up and still sparring everybody, fight everybody drunk. I never had that, like, I'm at the liquor store, like, oh, please don't buy a liquor. Nah. It was like, once I was rolling. And then people that love me, hey man, stop. And out in my head, it flips it on you. Like, they have the problem. And I didn't get that.
Because to you were just having a good time.
And with his growingly erratic behavior and the fact that he was also a dangerous cage fighter, his circle of people he could actually trust just got smaller and smaller.
Once like my managers left and like I didn't have like a home gym anymore because the place closed down. Once I lost all my like community and structure, who the fuck's gonna tell Mayhem what to do? If my manager didn't just evaporate and I had cut out everybody else from my life, nobody was there to tell me, hey dude, you're fucking up.
The pin finally dropped in October 2014. News came out on Twitter that Miller was engaged in a live standoff with a SWAT team at his home in Orange County, California. A felony domestic violence warrant had been issued, and Jason live tweeted the whole thing, fully expecting the worst to happen. The community really did think he'd lost his mind, and everyone thought he needed help, but what could the fans do? Also living in California was Jason Ellis, a former professional skateboarder turned podcaster who trained at the same MMA gyms Jason did. They had bonded as friends, and Ellis would be there to watch Mayhem's descent firsthand.
I was a piece of shit.
Well, he just started to lose it and started to scare me and say weird things where I was like, dude, that's not good. And then he started being aggressive to people. It was like nobody was home anymore. Every now and then I'd get an update by the fucking news or something where you're going to prison.
The following year, he was arrested again in March outside a bar in Laguna, California, this time for battery on a peace officer, unlawful fighting, and resisting arrest. Then in October, it was another arrest for assault after threatening deputies with a fire extinguisher and a metal pole during a domestic disturbance call. This time they had to tase him, and he was charged with assault. And it just kept going on and on. February, arrested in Irvine, California for suspicion of driving under the influence. March, arrested for vandalizing a tattoo shop in Lake Forest, California. July, arrested at a chop house in Costa Mesa, California after allegedly injuring a security guard and spitting on a police officer.
You just kept thinking maybe you were right, and you just kept pushing back when it was really your fault.
In retrospect, it's very clear that I had severe problems.
I would ask you if you're on drugs, and you kept telling me you weren't. So I kept thinking that you really have lost your fucking mind.
It's like there's a disconnect from the punishment.
It was around this time in 2016 that he actually booked another MMA fight. Venator FC managed to wrangle together a contract for Miller only for him to massively miss weight and get submitted for the first time in 14 years. He looked terrible, and it only added to the fans' sadness at seeing someone they admired truly fallen so far. But things were starting to spiral even faster, and Miller went from causing disturbances to an actual life of crime. After a crazy 2019, he served a 1-year prison sentence after convictions for vandalism, but he was right back at it again come August in 2020, where he was once again arrested and charged with first-degree burglary and grand theft auto in Irvine, California.
For me, it was a nightmare. For me, I went from the fight world to crime because I had no other way to really make it. I was like, you know what? These drugs are fixing me. You know, when you're caught up in it, and you're like oozing with drugs through your bloodstream, you're feeling so good. I can see clearly because I was taking prescription medications and I was taking them wrong. They kept giving me them, and then they kept giving me new ones to counteract the old ones.
And then you're in a relationship with the person who was doing drugs as well.
Yeah.
Then in September 2021, Jason's spree of chaos had run out. He got into a bar fight again in California and was charged with serious consequences. Mayhem was going away behind bars again, and we didn't hear from him for quite some time.
And it stuck with me.
I knew you'd be alive because I was like, I don't think anybody in prison could kill you.
You have a head on a swivel, bro, because they come in packs, dog. And then I just became the guy who's like coaching everybody how to fight.
No one really heard from Miller after that until June 2023, where he posted a statement basically apologizing to everyone.
All I saw from the outside was, you're a fucking idiot and I'm fucking done with you. I didn't think about maybe it wasn't actually Jason's full decision to go down that path.
The problem I had was I could never get out of that rolling snowball of bullshit because I kept getting back into it, kept going, fuck, look at a drink, and then, now I'm getting a bar fight. Fuck. I got the fucking rolling ball of sunshine now. I didn't think it could get this way. That's why I kept falling back into the old ways.
Miller had finally hit rock bottom and took himself to check into a rehab and finally try to fix his problems.
The HOA threw me out because I pissed on the president's, allegedly, on his rug. And I just went on a tear. I was like, okay, enough's enough. And I tried to go to a rehab. The rehab intake closed at 7 o'clock, I think. And I showed up at like 7:30 and the doors were locked. And I was like, fuck. I wandered around, but I went down to Skid Row for about 16 minutes. And I was never more nervous in my life. This is what's next, buddy. If you keep fucking up like this.
It was the last wake-up call Miller needed. Once checked in, he quit drinking, sobered up, and finally started to roll back the haze that had fallen over his life.
Quit drinking for how long are we talking?
God, months and months.
You're sober.
Sober. Yeah. You know what the hardest thing was? To quit smoking the mountain of weed that I smoked. Put all these substances in your body, and I'm living proof that if you do that, you're fucking up.
Once committed, Jason knew he was making the right choices for himself. Finally. After rehab was over, Jason continued to stay sober and ended up discovering and working with an organization that gave him a stable home base.
MVP is the Merging Vets and Players Association, former professional athletes, veterans who have gotten out of the service, and we try to help them make that transition. The life of a prize fighter, in my case, or a service member, and try to transition to that civilian life in a easy way.
Just having a group of people with the same shared experiences helped save Miller's life.
MVP got me to be human again. There's a big gap in our world once you leave that career. Very hard to transition back. Every Wednesday I'm showing up and there's somebody there who has a shared experience. I'm so thankful.
Apart from continuing to coach mixed martial arts, Mayhem has even found himself a regular role on the Adam Carolla podcast, one of the longest running shows, as Mayhem, the news guy. And he was even recently reunited with Ariel Helwani, who opened up some lines of communication tentatively, and Jason just seemed to be in the best place he'd been in such a long time. And of course, the comments were just flooded with support from so many fans from years that had watched and loved the comedy and antics of Mayhem. But now, having gone through this man's entire life and career, I honestly don't even know how Jason Miller is still alive. The man has fucked up many times, but it's so hard to be wrapped up in that much self-destruction and then to find a way out, to find any piece or part of yourself that's still in there and be able to rebuild yourself around it. Yes, many people will look at his career and say that he didn't beat the best fighters, but did he ever not put on a show for everyone in that crowd? He was always guaranteed entertainment. And I can speak personally about how much he did for me when getting into the sport. Learning about MMA, the moves on Bully Beatdown, how MMA fighters conducted themselves. They weren't the bullies, they were professional, trained, respectful martial artists that were handing out the justice. I mean, would I even be here without someone like Mayhem Miller, a guy that reached out beyond the veil of MMA hardcore fandom and pulled millions of fans into the sport? I'm not sure what your opinion of Jason Miller will be after watching this video. Everything he was charged with, he has served time for, and since it seems he's only tried to use those negative experiences to create positivity on planet Earth. Some people don't forgive that easily, but you can't deny that Mayhem has clearly taken full responsibility for everything he's done and is now only trying to help others going through the same thing. When he was stable, his personality and attitude to the sport only encouraged and enthused millions of fans and his fellow fighters, and by going through such struggle himself, he's been able to continue to do that, taking all those lessons and channeling it back into helping others yet again. You can spin it however you want, but MMA owes Mayhem Miller a debt, and it seems finally it's starting to be paid. Honestly, what do you even say about Mayhem Miller's career at this point? The guy has had one of the most incredible journeys in the sport, been through some real adversity, and now has come out the other side, seemingly a completely different man looking to change his life and improve the lives of others. I have to give a big thank you as well to Luke Taylor. Cool to me, you know him guys, the boy. He's edited this fantastically. He works his ass off on these guys. They take a long time. Please check him out on social media at cooltome_. He deserves a big thank you and some love and appreciation for all the hard work. I want to say thank you as well to the Hall of Famers, the channel members out there, guys. Thank you for your support. You help make these longer videos possible. If you want to join them, guys, get access to the writers meeting and a bunch of other fun stuff. Check out the description down below, the links there. You can find out more. What do you guys think of Mayhem Miller and his career? Did you know about him before? Did you learn about him from this video? Was this nostalgic for you? Leave us a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. I will read them. We will share in this adventure together. If you did enjoy the video, guys, give us a thumbs up. Really helps show the appreciation. Goes a long way. Thank you. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you very much, everybody. Us.